Previously.
When that doorbell camera disconnect, hello, is there other cameras? Was the camera destroyed? Do we have any footage? Any of that? The camera she has is the Nest camera. And Nest cameras, they can record without a subscription or anything. At 2:12 a.m., the camera detects a person, but no video is saved. Issue I have with that is 1:47, the camera was disconnected, the doorbell. So that means it has to be another camera or something we ain't speaking on. Red flag. We're arguing that she doesn't have a subscription to the camera. Man, this is a NBC journalist and broadcaster, also attorney. Mother. Come on, man. That subscription less than $20 a month. It's no question she got that subscription. Any closer to speculations? You can name you any suspects, any person of interest, anybody with a motive? No.
Then, out of nowhere,
We begin with new developments in the search for Nancy Guthrie.
This morning, several news outlets are reporting that the man detained for questioning in her disappearance has been released. We're hearing from a man who says it's him and he is innocent, but the sheriff's office has so far declined NBC's request for comment.
Now, this comes after newly released video shows a person appearing to tamper with Guthrie's security camera. NBC's Alice Barr has more.
I was the one that was pulled over at the traffic stop.
In rapid developments this morning, we're hearing from a man who says he was the one detained for questioning in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that he lives at the southern Arizona property state and federal authorities searched overnight. They would only say after the search that the investigation is ongoing. The man says he delivers packages in the Tucson area, but had nothing to do with Guthrie's disappearance.
All I know is that they show my in-law a picture of somebody wearing a mask or something, and they supposedly, it looked like my eyes.
The Pima County Sheriff's Office earlier said they detained someone for questioning in the case in a Tuesday traffic stop south of Tucson, but would not comment on whether or not that person was released. It all comes after the FBI made public this disturbing video of a masked person wearing gloves and carrying a gun and a backpack outside Nancy Guthrie's home the night she went missing more than 10 days ago. The FBI director who visited the Tucson Command Center yesterday and shared this photo confirmed investigators are looking at persons of interest, but no one in law enforcement has said whether the person brought in for questioning is the same one in this doorbell camera video that the FBI had been working with private sector companies to recover.
And then go into their systems and actually excavate material that people would think would normally be deleted and no one would look for.
The images reveal what appears to be facial hair around the person's mouth and what looks like distinctive eyebrows through the mask's eye holes. You can also see the person's clothing and body movements as they tampered with and covered up the camera. Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie shared the video from her mother's doorbell camera, writing, "Someone out there recognizes this person. We believe she is still out there. Bring her home." As for how that video was recovered, a retired FBI agent told NBC News that even though Nancy Guthrie apparently didn't have a subscription to store the video, there are stops between the data going from the camera to the server where pieces of data can be left behind and potentially recovered. And it appears that's what happened here. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Let's bring in Kurt Knutson, the cyber guy. Kurt, thank you so much for joining us. So there is still the ransom note and the Bitcoin account. An update on that from Harvey Levin, who said this to Sean Hannity yesterday. Watch.
It was just before 4 o'clock LA time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. There was activity for the first time, Sean, in that Bitcoin account, the link of which is in that first ransom letter that we obtained. We've been checking it every few minutes, and for the first time it surfaced. Well, it's a little bit confusing to me, and I'll explain why. That this letter, Sean, is so well constructed. I read it and think this is a really intelligent person who knows how to express a thought. They have thought this out. They are to the point. They cover everything they need to cover. And then you look at this, and there's something bumbling about it, where the person who is shown right there took enough care to completely cover himself, you know, except for seeing a mustache and either a goatee or a beard. And yet he doesn't realize that there's a camera on that door, and that suddenly surprises him enough that he has to go over, stoop down, and grab some brush to try and cover the camera. That doesn't align to me with somebody as methodical as what I believe the person who wrote that note.
And Kurt, apparently there was activity in this Bitcoin account. A local outlet is reporting to the tune of a small transfer of potentially under $300. So what does that tell you about where things stand with the Bitcoin and ransom note element of this story?
I mean, here's the range we're looking at. Carly, good morning to you. $300 into the Bitcoin account. First of all, let me just explain how Bitcoin works. Once you establish that wallet, essentially you're going to go to an exchange. You're going to fund it from your bank or however you get the money in there to convert it into Bitcoin. And then it's going to then give you a wallet, and then that's what lets you essentially pour those funds into. And then you're going to aim that at whoever you want. On their end, they have that wallet. They are able to receive it, unlock it, and then move the funds wherever they want. Now, in the middle of all of this is where we're at, which is the wallet's been created. It's active, but it's also very, very public, which means that anybody could have put $300 in that account. There's nothing stopping Joe Schmo and the public from putting $300 in there. However, if you're maybe one of the Guthrie facilitators who's setting this up, is this the moment you say, hey, just before we do anything more, let's make sure this Bitcoin wallet is seeing the money we're putting into, and they go ahead and try to put in about $300 to see if indeed they see it there, or maybe it was some signal to be sent to another party to say, look, as a goodwill of gesture to tell you that we're complying, we've already just thrown in $300 to show you we're ready to use it. It's ready to get to you. So there's a variety of possibilities related to the Bitcoin blockchain, which, again, public facing, which, we're looking at this time.
Yeah, or Kurt, could this be an effort by law enforcement to try and trace where this Bitcoin account is located and who is behind this? Because we have heard that these accounts can be traceable.
Yeah, so that's called a dust attack. So many times criminals will play off a scheme, which is, they'll say deposit $300 into it and then reach out to you and say, oh, I made a mistake. I accidentally sent $300 to your account. Can you send it back to me? Well, as soon as you do that, you're revealing a whole bunch of information about how to access that wallet. So did investigators do this as a possibility? Maybe. You can get additional information if you do interact with the wallet. Many times people do that to trace it a little bit better. So I wouldn't rule it out.
If the Guthrie family does send the $6 million, is there any way that they could ever receive that money back in return?
Yeah, so if you look back at, a lot of people think once these cryptocurrency transactions happen, that they're not traceable, and once the money's gone, it's gone. Not always the case. If you look back at the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, that's a very similar scenario where criminals said, hey, we're cutting off the oil supply here in the U.S. in this one area unless you pay us a bunch of money. So they paid a bunch of money. Well, investigators were watching that trail. And boy, it could be months, maybe even years from now, where they finally reveals where that money went. And in this particular case, they got back north of 80% of the original amount of money that was transferred to the criminals. So anything's possible on the back end. Does it happen routinely? No. Yeah. But yes, where investigators are going to look in this case, if indeed the Guthrie family funds this wallet to pay ransom, is on the back end where the criminals receive it. And then at that point, they need to determine what are they going to do with it? Where are they going to route that to turn it into real money?
Yeah, and obviously this money is secondary to finding Nancy Guthrie, which is the primary focus. And yesterday there was this surveillance video that was, of course, released. And you have a note saying that if the person who is in this footage disabled the Nest camera, then he was potentially responsible for saving the video that incriminates himself.
It's very interesting, and I don't know the answer to whether or not he was successful at disabling that Nest camera at the door that you see him interacting with. But that interesting possibility with that front door video footage, some of these Nest cameras are built in a way so that they're not connected to the cloud. They're still storing information, they call it buffering information, on the device itself, up to about an hour's worth of video in some cases. When at that moment you put that disabled camera or disconnected camera back into a subscription form to the cloud, that device will often just upload that last buffered video. Now, because it may have been disabled, it's going to preserve that last chunk of video, where otherwise, if someone would have left it alone, it's going to continue to write over itself as time goes by. So an interesting possibility with this. We're trying to dig deeper to find out if that is indeed what happened. And then also, is this that Generation Nest device that would have done that? So we're not quite sure yet.
Yeah, technology certainly playing a huge role in this horrific case and could be the main factor in solving it. Kurt, thank you so much.